Welcome back, everybody. This is Pucks from the Pine Tree Pod. I'm your host, Benjamin Kennedy. Thank you so much for joining me today. After a hot start, are the Boston Bruins exactly what we expected them to be? What other NHL teams are surprising you so far? And how about those hot New Jersey Devils? We're going to talk about all that along with putting a wrap on the ECHL Maine Mariners opening weekend, and we'll get you guys set up for their two-game homestand coming up at the Cross Insurance Arena here for this weekend. Guys, let's get after it. Let's go. So before we talk about hockey, I've just got one thing to say. Let's go, Blue Jays. Let's go. Let's go get it, boys. I am just not used to watching baseball this late into October. I am so pumped, so excited for this World Series, man. As much as they were the number one seed in the American League, I am a little surprised. I did not want to see Seattle. Seattle's one of those teams that has just had our number the past couple of times we've played them in the playoffs. So winning that game 7 on Sunday night was just absolutely electric. A little surprising, halfway through that game, their pitcher was throwing nails. I was like, yeah, this thing is done. And then we get that George Springer bomb in the 7th inning. LA might smoke us. That's possible. It's very possible. But I'm just so excited. Can't wait to see what we see there on Friday night. So anyway, we're going to transition back to hockey. I just have to get that out of my system, man. I am so pumped up. So, Boston Bruins. How are we feeling, Bruins fans? What are we feeling right now? You start the season with 3 wins. You're feeling hot. You're feeling good. Now 5 losses in a row to make it 3-5 here through the first 8 games. Are they what we expected? Sort of, I guess. It's weird, right? Like, they're structured better on the ice. They look more organized. Everything just looks a little bit better than it did a year ago. I think we can all agree to that. They're going to be competitive, and they have been competitive so far in most of these games. 4 1-goal losses, though. So we do kind of expect that this is going to be a team that's going to be in a lot of 2-1, 3-2 type games, and that's so far what we've seen. And of those 5 losses, 4 of them by 1 goal, and that Florida game, just so typical. That's just such a typical loss for the Boston Bruins against Florida. That's what Florida does to us. They score with under a minute to go to either tie the game or take the lead. There was so much in that last minute of play that I did not like. Losing the puck in your own ozone, just kind of being a little slap happy with it. You give it right back to Florida. And then, I know that Swayman's out there making the initial save, but he gets way out of his net. Puck bounces around, just such an unlucky bounce. But again, there were a few things in that last minute of play that they could have really cleaned up to at least gotten a point. Get to overtime, get you an overtime loss point, something. Just kind of a heartbreaking loss. So in many ways, I think they are what we kind of sort of expected them to be through 8 games. But they're 4th in goals scored in the NHL right now. I know it's early, but they got 24 goals. We didn't see that. We thought that goal scoring would be the struggle. And right now their PK is 8th in the league at 87.9%. So PK has been very, very good, and they are 2nd in the faceoff circle. So their centermen are getting the job done there when the puck drops. That's at a 55.8%. So there's some good metrics in here, 8 games. And again, I know it's only 8 games, but you got to kind of look at the good here, give them some credit for some of the things that are going well. So I think, like I say, from a structure and organization perspective, they're better. And there's some silver linings, in here right now for the group. But the real problem is where the offense has been maybe better than expected. The defense has been more of a struggle, maybe worse than expected. Obviously, we know we have the injury to Hampus Lindholm, and now, of course, Jordan Harris is out. But, man, it's hard to look at the defense and not talk about Mason Lorhei right now. This poor kid is just on the struggle bus once again. I haven't seen any progress from year to year. I know he's still a young guy, but you fully expected after last season, you get into the summer, you get the new coaching staff in here. He's a highly talented kid. but you're seeing the same exact mistakes over and over and over again, and it is just killing the team. I mean, he was responsible for 2 of those goals in that Florida game last time. He's just, you don't see him playing with the strength. I'm not saying he's not a strong kid, but he's just too easy to drive on. Like, forwards are just able to just drive right on him and drive right past him to the net. You saw that in that last game. Worry about some of his decision making right now as well. I think there's still some struggle there. Maybe the game's still a little too fast for him. And, you just would hope you would have seen more progress to this point. The problem is, saw some social media posts. Oh, send him to Providence. Like that. There's no way he's clearing waivers. There's no way he clears waivers. So he's here. He's in Boston. And guess what, guys? We need him. Like, we need him to perform. We need him to be successful. He's got, good offensive skills for a D guy. And like we said, Hampus has struggled with injury here out of the gate. Harris is now out. This is not a super deep defensive core this year. Callahan has been called up from Providence. So, he's been, I think, the best defenseman in Providence so far. But yeah, you need Mason to learn quick. And hopefully the coaching staff can, really, get him in the film room and show him some of these things and get him going. But I'm cheering for the kid. But man, it's alarming to see so little progress from year to year. From a positive perspective, I think Zadorov has been really, really good this year. We were eviscerating Zadorov a year ago for just a lot of poor play and all the penalties and all that kind of stuff. And he's been a fairly disciplined player so far, for him anyway. Probably been the most consistent guy out there defensively. Trying to remember what game it was. I think it was a couple games ago where he got a little bit of an actor too, man. I like it. He like sucker punched a guy and then kind of leaned up on the post like, I didn't do anything. I don't know. I'm just sitting here, hanging out. It was kind of cool, but nice to see him playing with some consistency. Again, you're going to need him to be really good this year as well. We know coming into tonight's game, Hamp is still day-to-day as of recording. I haven't checked to see if Marco Sturm has had any comments on that. Looking like potentially game-time decision. And, of course, we know Jordan Harris on the IR as well with Callahan coming up. So, yeah, again, kind of a mixed bag for the Boston Bruins. Of those 4 1-goal losses, could you have gotten a couple points? Those are the points that you're not getting right now that are going to kill you come April when you're fighting for a wild card, when you're fighting in your Atlantic Division and with some of those other teams in the Metro. It's those points that are going to absolutely break you and make you finish, 9th or 10th or whatever in the East. So, upcoming schedule, of course, we have Anaheim tonight. They are off to a 3-2-1 start. We've got Colorado coming in Saturday afternoon, and then Monday up to Ottawa for a Monday night game, and then back at the Garden Tuesday night against the New York Islanders. Of course, this is a very condensed schedule with the Olympics coming up in February. So, but man, you got to figure out a way to get some points here coming up. A couple overtime losses, something. Just start getting some points going. It's not late yet, but it gets late early. In the NHL, once you hit November 1st, once you hit U.S. Thanksgiving, those are some key dates. If you're out of the playoff mix, it becomes really difficult because you have so many teams in front of you that are all, getting points and getting wins. So, yeah, you got to figure it out. If you're the Boston Bruins, you got to figure it out quick. So let's turn the page for just for a moment. Let's look at something really positive here. The New Jersey Devils. Man, 6-1. This was, of course, my Eastern Conference pick a year ago. Maybe I was a year too early, picking those guys, but they've won 6 in a row, and they're doing this without their starting goaltender, Jacob Markstrom. Of course, he's down with injury right now. But let's look at their wins. They've beaten Tampa Bay. They've beaten Columbus. They've beaten the Florida Panthers, Edmonton Oilers, Toronto Maple Leafs, Minnesota Wild. So this is not a slouch schedule here. This is a lot of really good teams, and they're just owning them. I mean, they went up to Toronto and just kicked their asses, and of course, as a Bruins fan, I was happy to see that, but man, they've been lights out. They're second in the league in goals scored so far with 28, 8 players on the roster right now with at least 2 goals scored. And of course, Jack, healthy, 6 goals already for him. Man, I talking to Ace from Running with the Devils podcast earlier this summer, Keep that guy in bubble wrap, man. Keep that guy healthy. He is making that engine drive. Been a lot of fun to see so far. Special teams for the Devils, been very special. Been very, very good. 96% on the PK. That's good for third in the league. And cooking at 30% on the power play. That's also good for third. So, man, you don't want to get them on the PP right now because they're going to score. They're just going to score on you. Um, Looking at the goaltending, yes, small sample size right now, but Jake Allen in that backup role, kind of pseudo starter right now. He's got 4 starts under his belt, 3-0, 1.91 goals against, and a 931 save percentage. He has just been amazing and getting them through that Markstrom injury. So, the story with New Jersey is always the health, staying away from injuries. Last year, they kind of got through, I'd say, about 2/3 of the schedule before the injury bug hit them. We'll see if they can keep it healthier this year. But just good to see good hockey out there and good to see a team that, struggled with injuries so much off to such a great start. But what other surprises do we have around the league right now? There's been some really good stories. I'm not going to do a deep dive into each one of these clubs, but let's look at some of these early season successes so far. The Pittsburgh Penguins, 5-2. Now, who had that? Seattle Kraken, a team I don't have a lot of faith in at all, off to a 3-2-2 start. Not too bad. Chicago Blackhawks, 3-2-2. And you know what? They of course came and played Boston. Boston beat them in overtime. But they're hard to play against this year. They're figuring it out. Maybe they don't know how to win every night, but they know how to play hard now. It's really good to see. I think we all want to see some of those young kids, especially Bedard, start to excel. Montreal, 6-2. Maybe not as big of a surprise, a playoff team from a year ago, but they've been really, really good so far. I have them as a wild card, potentially getting in this year, but man, they might hit the top 3. They might hit the top 3 in the Atlantic. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch as we go through the year. Lane Hudson, just, phenomenal. Just a really, really fun team to watch for sure. And then the Buffalo Sabres. Look at this, Buffalo. You're 3-4. That's great. I mean, 3-4 after 7 games. I think any Sabre fan would take that. As I said in my last video, I just want to see the Sabres be relevant this year. Just stay around it a little bit for a little while. Build on something, make something. Give those fans something to be excited about. If not for this year, for next season. We do have some uh-ohs out there. We have some old boys out there as well to watch for right now. And again, people could say, well, it's early. But how about the Tampa Bay Lightning? 1-3-2 so far. Like, how worried should we be about Tampa? Have they just been a little snake bitten with not getting goals here early on? But or is age catching up to them a little bit? But 1-3-2 is not something that most people had for this team as they start the season. Playoff team from a year ago, the Ottawa Senators, 2-4-1. So they're off to kind of a rough start. And of course, the New York Rangers, 3-4-1. Of course, their first 3 home games didn't score a goal. I think, again, they missed the playoffs a year ago, but I think there's a lot expected of this group this year with new coach Mike Sullivan being there. So 3-4-1, I think if you're a Ranger fan, you're probably a little bit frustrated. Maybe not over the top worried quite yet. But again, you want to figure it out. You want to get that thing going. And then we do have a couple of teams right now struggling where I really think we may have some candidates for head coach changes, because we always know before Christmas, we usually have at least 1, if not 2 head coaches that lose their jobs and get replaced. And I'm not cheering for that, guys. I hate the overreaction of NHL GMs and how quickly they change these head coaches out. But you do have a couple of candidates right here that I want to talk about. Starting with the Nashville Predators, 2-3-2 after just a horrid year a year ago. Of course, it's former Portland Pirate Andrew Brunette that is coaching that team, a coach I really like. And he has a long, long history with GM Barry Trotz, again, former Portland Pirate coach here. Looking at Nashville, and I haven't watched much of them yet this year, but I did watch some of them last year. Is it the mix of players in the room that's just a bad mix? Or is it a new voice needed in the clubhouse or in the locker room, on the bench? I really do think it goes back to the mix. You have good players. You have good veteran players. You have a lot of Stanley Cups in that room. but man, it's just not working. Again, they're competitive enough. Like they go out, they're hard, they play hard. They're in a lot of games, but they're still just not winning enough of those games. And you go back to last season when they signed all these guys. They brought Stammer in and Marchessault and some others, and you just thought, man, this is going to be a home run. But the mix is just not working. So you wonder, A, how quickly do they make a coaching decision? Is Andrew in trouble? And do they start to make some early trades? Do they say, you know what, this just isn't working. We've got to punt on this now. They've got some guys with some no movement clauses in there, so it's not as easy as just making a trade, but maybe they start some of those conversations right now if this continues. Be something worth watching. Let's go to the LA Kings. They're off to a 2-3-2 start. And oh, baby, the heat is on Jim Hiller right now. Already hearing, crying and whining about some of his lineup decisions so far, some questionable decisions. And listen, this is not Ken Holland's guy. Ken Holland comes in as the GM. Hiller's here. He leaves him in place. But you just wonder, again, most GMs like to have their own head coach behind the bench. How patient is he going to be with this? I don't know. I don't know how patient you can be. This is a team, of course, you've got, your captain, Kopitar, last season. Do you really want him to go out like this? And the expectations, I think, are there for this to be a playoff team. And I think they think that they have a Stanley Cup run in them. I don't necessarily think they do. But yeah, you just wonder if Holland's going to want his own guy at some point. And you go back to the playoff debacle from a year ago and how horrible Hiller managed that. And some of the questionable decisions already this year, along with a 2-3-2 start, it's not looking good, man. It's not looking good. Last team we'll talk about here, kind of on the struggle bus, is Calgary. 1-6-1. Just, tough there for head coach Ryan Huska. I don't know if you make a change here yet. Kind of sort of felt like last season they kind of played over their skis a little bit. Yeah, I mean, they were so close to the playoffs a year ago. Were way better than I think a lot of people expected. But I think what you're seeing today might be closer to what they actually are. They may not be 1-6-1. They may not be that bad, but they may not be that on the verge of the playoff team that they were a year ago. So I think it's a little bit of leveling out expectations if you're a Flames fan. And listen, Huska's been in the organization for 12 years, a long time in the minors, his third year as the head coach. And I think they like him there. And I think it comes back to ownership and management, understanding what they are right now. I mean, if their expectations are, we got to be a playoff team, then Huska might be in trouble. But if they see it like a lot of us see it, say, you know what? Yeah, we like some of our players. We have some youth. Wolf maybe isn't off to the best start. Maybe you've got some other guys kind of slow out of the gate. Maybe we have some veterans we're going to move off of and do more of a reset. Like I say, I'm not cheering for any of these guys to lose their jobs. I hate how quick this happens, but you expect it to happen soon. I do think the LA Kings are probably the most likely candidate, if their struggle continues, to make a change, just because of where their expectations are, Hiller's history, and the fact that Ken Holland, new GM, probably wants his own guy. And man, you got Pete DeBoer sitting out there. I know I talk about Pete DeBoer a lot on this channel, but I think he would look really good behind that bench in LA if a change is needed. All right, guys, let's move on to the ECHL and let's talk about our Maine Mariners. 1-1 after 2 games after their away game in Worcester and their home opener on Sunday against Reading. Yeah, kind of a mixed bag after those 2 games. Let's just break down a couple of these box scores right here. First, going back to Saturday, of course, the team winning 5-0 down in Worcester. 36 shots on goal for Maine to 26 for Worcester. 11-15-10 for Maine. 11-5-10 through those periods for Worcester. Power play for Maine in this one was 1 for 5. Worcester 0 for 2. It was Kalmakoff getting the first goal from Gallagher and Perreault. Lampa getting his first one. Perreault and Gallagher again on those assists. Perreault with a goal there in the third period. Kalmakoff with the assist there. Thompson getting a goal. Shovelday and Hudson with the helpers. And Andrea with his first goal, assisted by Element and Bellamy. this was a nip and tuck game right up until kind of late into that second period when Kalmakov got it going on that power play. And then Maine just poured it on in that third period with those 4 goals. Kavalin in net, getting the shutout. Really, really good to see there. Lennox for Worcester, giving up the 5 goals on 36 shots, taking the loss. Of course, the Maine Mariners, are going to see a heck of a lot this year in the Worcester Railers. And then Sunday afternoon, the home opener, which was a packed house there at the Cross Insurance Arena. Yeah, a little different result here. We're going to talk about this one a little bit, but the Reading Royals coming in, winning 4-0. Game kind of mimicked a little bit of what you saw the night before, where kind of a slow start in the first period. And again, no scoring until very late into that second period. It was Kulikov for Reading getting the first one at the 1935 mark. That was assisted by Golder and Frasca. Frasca getting the goal there in the third period, assisted by Burke and Shimajin, I think is how you pronounce that one. Capone getting the goal to 15:03 mark, assisted by Hackins, and then McMenamin from Sajin and Butcher there to end it. That was an empty net goal. Shots on goal, this was one that was kind of back and forth. Maine had the edge in the first period, 13-8. Reading 17-9 in the second, and then Reading 14-10 in the third. That was 39 shots to 32 for Maine. Power plays, there was a lot of power plays, a lot of opportunities. Reading 0 for 5, and Maine 0 for 6. Definitely part of the story there. Kavalin was back in net, 35 saves on 38 shots. Petrozelli with the win and the shutout, 32 shots, 32 saves. He was the goalie of the week for the ECHL, so congrats to him. So, yeah, mixed bag. Team obviously perfect on the PK so far. You love seeing that, 7 for 7. Their attack, very aggressive, very active sticks. They're going to be hard on the PK. They're going to be hard to score on. I think that's going to bode very well for the club. Again, they're fairly well loaded with a lot of veteran-type guys. But, man, 1 for 11 on the power play, I mean, that's just not going to be acceptable with the offensive talent you have on this team. Definitely needs some attention. It's definitely early, so that's the good news. But you have too much offensive talent for those kind of results on the power play. Looking at the power play, especially on Sunday when they were desperate for a goal, desperate for any momentum, there were some things I saw out there. Spacing in particular looked a little bit off, just looked a little clunky. Puck speed and just the puck movement just looked, again, a little slow. And that probably leads to some poor spacing out there. It all kind of comes together. But those are some areas I think they need to improve. You can create better spacing. Hopefully that leads to better speed and just more efficient movement. You want to create more of those 2-on-1 situations on the power play. That's really what they were not able to do. And let's give Reading credit. They did a good job defending it. Of course, their goaltender did a great job when shots were getting through, but definitely some room for improvement for the Maine Mariners there. So let's talk about the home opener. I'm not going to talk a lot about the Saturday win. I'm going to talk about the Sunday afternoon game, but Mike Keeley and I talked about it a little bit on the broadcast, or I might have even been on a commercial break. Are we too early for that fatigue discussion? Reading came in, they were sitting in Portland waiting for the Maine Mariners. I think they had played on Friday night. Mariners played on Saturday. So they come up after a Saturday night game, had to play a Sunday matinee. There's a couple schools of thought on this one. You think, geez, well, it's early in the season. They shouldn't be tired. Fatigue shouldn't be an excuse. But it's also early in the season where you haven't had a lot of practices. You've only had 2 preseason games. And yes, we know in this league, you play a lot of back-to-back-to-backs, a lot of Friday, Saturday, Sundays, a lot of horrible bus rides, from Trois-Rivières or to Reading or to Wheeling or whatever, right? It's not an easy league. But right now, I wonder, are their bodies just not used to it quite yet? This won't be a talking point in a few weeks from now. You get into late November, into December. No, you should be well adjusted and used to this. But I do think fatigue did play a little bit on Sunday afternoon. As you watch the game, I would say Maine looked better early, and they couldn't get one of those goals to go in. And as the game went on, Reading looked like the more rested team. It's just what it is. That's not an excuse. It's just what I saw from the booth. And you saw those defensive details slip a little bit for Maine as the game went on. Again, a little bit of fatigue factor perhaps, but too many giveaways. I mean, I think it was that second period, I counted 3 or 4 giveaways that led directly to shots on goal. Again, just unacceptable type of play. Things I know that Coach Kowalski will be focused on and trying to clean up. From an offensive perspective, going back to Sunday, lots of low percentage type and I would say hope sorts of plays and passes through the neutral zone and into the O zone, kind of forcing the play a little bit, forcing that creativity, not taking the simple play, not taking the easy play. And it's something that I talked about on the broadcast as well. I think that, they know they're a talented group. You got guys like Element and Andreev and Perot and Kalmakov and McCollum and, Hudson. You got a lot of good, talented players, and I think they know it. But I think that can lead to a little bit of stubborn play at times. And I think that's what you saw a little bit on Sundays. Hey, we're more talented offensively. We're just going to make some of these crazy, creative plays and get it done. And Reading was just all over. They weren't allowing anything to get through. And then you go back to 0 for 6 on the power play. We talked about the power play already, but you gain no momentum from that. That's just an absolute killer when you go 0 for 6. It also hurts your 5-on-5 play because you spend so much time on the power play. You also had to kill 5 penalties, 11 total penalties in this game. Not a lot of 5-on-5 kind of momentum there either. So you couldn't get any momentum from any of it. And you struggle. You just struggle. Couple last notes here on this. What you saw on Saturday with that kind of hard to play against kind of culture that I know that the coaching staff wants to build here. You didn't see that on Sunday. They did not look like a team that was hard to play against like they were on Saturday. So I just look at this as maybe a little bit of an early season wake-up call for the group. Week of practices, I think Coach Kowalski's probably had plenty for them to work on, plenty of good material for them to look at from the video and things out on the ice. So I say, you know what, guys, work on those few things, work on those defensive details, work on your power play, work on just better offensive efficiencies, throw this tape away, wash it away, and be done with it. I don't think there's really a lot to be worried about in this, but you just have to, just work on it, wash it away, be better next weekend. Coming out of the weekend, you do have Jacob Perreault, 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points. And man, this guy, his skating ability is just phenomenal. You can see why he was a former first-round draft pick. You just hope now he can start to put it all together. 3-point weekend, not bad. His skill is incredible. And then, of course, Brooklyn Kalmakov with a goal and an assist for 2 points. So great to see him back here in Portland. We'll see how long he's here. We'll see how long he stays here. A couple other standouts from the weekend for me. Max Andreev and Sean Element both really stood out going back to Sunday. Just high hockey IQs out of both of these guys. I loved Andreev's puck moving. I love the fact that he just kind of constantly stayed in motion in the O zone, right? He didn't, sit still. Drove the net, trying to create traffic out in front. That's a high hockey IQ player. And then with Element, and he's just going to be a house to deal with for opponents. The physical presence, physical player, his board play, his stick play is brilliant. He wins just about every board battle out there. So I think he's going to be just horrible to deal with if you're an opponent, but a lot of fun for the Maine Mariners. Looking at goaltending, of course, Luke Kavalin got both starts this weekend, 61 saves on 64 shots, 954 save percentage, absolutely brilliant. I know I saw some comments on social media after the Sunday game, like, oh, that was stupid to start him back-to-back nights. And it's like, guys, he was not the reason for the loss on Sunday. I know people want to see RV. You'll see RV next week, and he's going to get one of the 2 games next weekend. But Kavalin looked great. He looked absolutely great. Didn't get a ton of work on Saturday. So listen, a kid of his caliber, he can play back-to-back nights. And he kept this from being a 7-0 or 8-0 type of game. Ends up being 4-0. But looking at his game, my first time seeing him, I didn't see him in the preseason. I was not down there on Saturday in Worcester. So my first time seeing him live, excellent lateral movement in the crease. I love seeing that. Also love the awareness of how he was able to kind of create vision for himself. I think Reading could have done a better job creating more traffic in front of him, but I think he also does a great job of positioning, being in the right position, being able to not lose that vision. And man, this guy is absolutely amazing with the puck on his stick. I know Coach Kowalski talked about that. He dropped a Martin Brodeur, reference there, and I was like, okay. I mean, Kaplan's good. Is he Marty Brodeur good? I mean, man, maybe he will be, but high praise, obviously, from Coach Kowalski when you're dropping a name like Brodeur. So, of course, we do have Gallagher, defenseman, going back up to Providence. So he played, of course, the 2 games. We might see him again this year, but he looked excellent down here. He's an AHL guy for sure, but did great in those 2 games for the club. Coming up this weekend, we have got 2 games against the WheelingNailers. Saturday, back at the Cross at 6 p.m. puck drop, and then Sunday matinee, 3 p.m. Should be an exciting couple of games there. Wheeling looking pretty good. Again, off to a 1-0 start. Only the 1 game so far, beating Cincinnati 5-3. And a couple of local guys to be watching for here. A couple of former UMaine Black Bears, David Brazil, defenseman, and forward Nolan Renwick, both on Wheeling's roster this year. So go check those guys out. A couple of players of note for the Nailers. Matthew Corsia from a year ago, 20 goals, 13 assists for 33 points. He's a little bit like a Sean Element type of guy, very physical player. You got to always have your head on a swivel when he's on the ice. And then Jordan Kaplan, a name you'll recognize from last season. He played for Worcester. He's now there in Wheeling, 18 goals, 31 assists for 49 points a year ago. So a couple names to keep in mind as you go to the Cross next weekend to watch those games. And just, again, a big thank you to Mike Keeley, to the Maine Mariners, for welcoming into the broadcast team for the season. Was able to do that home opener with Mike. Was just a heck of a lot of fun. I'm going to get better at it. A little bit of nerves, a little bit of times where I'm, watching the game. I get so invested in watching the game. It's like, oh, I got to talk too, So first time doing this, I did the 1 preseason game, now the home opener, but I'll be back for more games with Mike. Not going to be there this week and have some family commitments, but looking forward to being back with Mike here in a couple weeks and having a lot of fun with him, man. Mike is such a good broadcaster, and it's humbling and it's honoring to be able to share the booth with him. So looking for more of that as we get into the season. So guys, thank you so much for watching and listening today. I absolutely appreciate it. If you're already subscribing to my channel here, thank you so much. If you're new to the channel, thank you. Really appreciate you taking a chance on this. If you haven't done so and want to stay up to date on all the things coming up here on the show, I do have another exciting guest coming up, not quite ready to announce it. Hit the like and the subscribe button down below. It will help you keep up to date on all the things happening here. And until next time, everybody, be kind, show love, and God bless.
Drive 1,000 miles till his pockets keep on growing. I be skating on the ice on my neck like a goalie. When she with you, yeah, shorty, she pursuing me. Would hate if I was you, yeah. We the best to do it, baby. We the best to do it, We the best to do it, baby. Got a hat trick, that 3 shorties on the daily. My mom gone, I just crashed a new Mercedes. Took a picture with her, not a think she famous. It's bye bye, little bye bye, little.